Good afternoon, everybody, or evening, or morning, or whenever you're listening or watching this. Welcome back to the Your Gray Matters podcast. I'm Jason here with my dad, Neil. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well, thanks. Well, let's get right into it. We had a great response to last week's podcast with Ronnie Fisher, but everybody was asking, what is it actually? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about Ronnie who's coming back this week?
Absolutely. We're glad to have Ronnie today. Call it part two, if you will. But the first week we looked at the mindset, getting yourself prepared to become an investor, being ready to learn, ready to grow. That's what we talked about. Today we get into the nuts and bolts of real estate investing. It's what Ronnie teaches and does. It's what I do. And I think that you'll be able, when you see the second part, be able to even grasp more why we did the first part. Today we'll cover topics, things like using other people's money to invest, leveraging money, taking equity out of your home when you think that the only way that you can get money out of your home is to sell it or to rent it. There's
Yeah.
more than that. So today's a great show.
Wonderful. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, let's get right to it. Let's take a listen to this week's show, Ronnie Fisher Part 2. As always, remember to please click that subscribe button if you're on YouTube and you hit the bell after you click subscribe, then you'll get a notification every time a new episode comes out. We're looking at playing with formats, maybe getting some shorter videos on. So yeah, like, subscribe, follow, introduce us to your friends, email at us at yourgraymatterspod@gmail.com. Enjoy the show.
Have fun. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Your Gray Matters. We hope that you're having a great summer. I know that we are. So you remember that we had Ronnie Fisher on, and this is actually a two-part process that we welcome you to go through. In the first video that we did, Ronnie and I were discussing about the right mental attitude for success. Ronnie is one of the great teachers on how to get yourself ready for success, be it mentally, physically, joyfully. That's what we covered in the first topic. I've never met a winner. I've never met a successful person who doesn't have dreams and goals and goes after them joyfully. Today, what we want to discuss is getting down to the nuts and bolts of how you can become a real estate investor, or perhaps you already are and you'd like to learn more. Ronnie is one of those great speakers, as you heard in part one. It can be on stage, it can be on Zoom, it can be one-on-one. You've got Ronnie Fisher today. Good morning, Ronnie. Welcome back to Your Gray Matters.
Morning, Neil. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm excited to chat with you. It always, it's like a little adventure every time you and I connect and talk and we learn more about each other, add value to one another. So thanks for having me again.
Pleasure. Ronnie, in the first video, as you and I discussed part one, we talked about having the right mental attitude, things that you and I have done to prepare ourselves. Not everybody goes on stage. Not everybody is a coach or a teacher, but it's good to have a method of coaching behind you. It's good to have a mentor, someone who knows where they're going and they're willing to help a person get there themselves. They're a guide, they're a teacher. They're not necessarily your best friend, but they're definitely someone who can help. Ronnie, with that in mind, let me turn this over to you. When you were getting into real estate investing, what did you find that you had to do? What can you recommend to people to get on a path of success? And don't be afraid to be bold, Ronnie, because I know that you are anyways.
Well, thanks, Neil. So if I rewind 9 years, at that time, I was a general contractor and I was working around the clock, long hours, first on the job site, last one to leave, doing estimates at night, all that kind of stuff, right? And I always wanted to flip houses. However, never had a savings for a down payment and being able to purchase a second property. So I was always working for other clients, right? And I saw some of the investors that I was hired for doing these flips using other people's money. And then I started learning about creative financing, and I started hearing some terms that in all my years, and at the time I think I was in my 30s, never heard of, creative financing, other people's money, joint venture partnerships. So I had to learn all about how to get access to financing. How can I propose deals to investors? So I started the journey of looking for resources, looking for tools, and as you just said, mentors. See, it's a lot easier to follow somebody else that's already been there, done that, and has
Yep.
already paved the way. So instead of me sort of doing this on my own, I found an organization. I got formal training on this. We really dove deep into my type of plan, the action steps that I'm going to implement. And it was really helpful to get me to launch sort of the the different path that I was on. I was just working full time and now investing, right? So I really think that having that education component gave me the confidence to take action. The coach was able to help me make some decisions that I wouldn't have made. I remember he saved me thousands of dollars simply by telling me to do less work. And
Yep.
as a general contractor, I was going to overdo it. I wanted to like change everything about the house, make it so dramatically different. And yet he told me to hold back. Don't change this. Don't do that. Don't put the money over here. And it saved me a fortune. We sold the property for the same amount of money. So definitely listening and following, some instructions, somebody that's been there, and taking somebody else's unbiased opinion. That's what's important about having a coach. Different from the bank systems, right? They've got their own agendas and they've got their own, um, you know, purposes for their products. But a
Yeah.
coach is going to be looking out for you.
That's right. That's right. So, Ronnie, when you got started in real estate yourself, you went the way of purchase, fix, and flip.
Yeah, that was my sort of want and desire as a contractor, Neil. I was tired of working with clients who couldn't make a decision on which color, couldn't pick a handle, couldn't pick a tile, and so I thought, well, if I can just like make all the houses the same, and if I had a skew of houses and I could just do the job for myself, I wouldn't have to banter with anybody or negotiate about prices. And truthfully, that's where all the profit is, flipping them for yourself, not doing the work for other people. And the
Right.
workload was pretty much the same. I just needed to figure out the financing.
So when you get guys like me who don't know a toilet from a hammer, I do know how to hire people, but there were some principles that I was taught even when I got involved in more passive fixed rate investing, which you've also done, and you have clients who've done that. I think the biggest thing is to really be able to understand the project and understand what's going to bring you the income. So whether you're buying a property and then you have to learn how to finance it, and perhaps you want to touch on how to do that, and then you buy it. Of course, you have to work with your own team. You need a lawyer. You need to have educators who have done this before. In my particular case, doing fixed rate, I have someone who helps me to read the documents and learn why I should expect this constant return for 2 or 3 years. Some of the ones that I'm involved in have compounding interest, and that's exciting to have. So would you say that there's a lot to learn when you're planning real estate investing, or give us some thoughts on where to start, where to go, irrespective of the type of real estate?
Appreciate that. Yeah. I like to paraphrase it like it's a restaurant menu of real estate investing options.
Yes.
And you don't know exactly what you're going to have at the restaurant you want to take an overview, you're reading the menu over. So there's a lot of possibilities, but you don't have to learn and dive deep into every one of those possibilities. Once you know what your options are, now a coach, a mentor can help you sort of formulate a plan that's more specific to you. And my plan and the way I started is not necessarily right fit for everybody else because I got the construction background. That's naturally where I started.
Right.
But quickly, I wanted to start acquiring properties, not just flipping them and selling them, but I wanted to build an income portfolio. And I also wanted to tap into the fixed rate and the equity. And I was looking at a variety of revenue streams.
Right.
So what I like to help people with is discovering what is the right plan for them, first and foremost, where they're starting from, what they're starting with, the financial resources they have. Maybe it's cash savings, maybe it's equity in their home, maybe it's RSPs or a tax-free savings account. And so how do we utilize those funds to get better returns safely and securely in real estate? And I think it's important to always discuss the risks that are involved. There's a risk tolerance. And that's what you said about knowing the project. You don't have to know how to hang drywall, but you do need to know what your risks are as an investor to put your money in. And
Correct.
so I question everything. I red flag everything. I dissect the project on behalf of my clients so that if it passes my own personal criteria and standards, then I'm able to share that and explain it and demonstrate to investors the due diligence that I've done. And then the investors, I always say, this is your due diligence. Here's what I've gathered. Here's the questions I've had. Here's the answers that I've got. So I think it's really important to customize something that's right fit to save yourself the time for running around learning too much,
Correct.
right?
Correct. I think we touched on something that's always been important to me, maybe to nobody else, but really understanding not just what the risk tolerant is for that project, but understanding what your own personal risk tolerance is. It could
Certainly.
be low risk tolerance, it could be high risk tolerance. You could be helpful to yourself and knowing if you're comfortable winning a big return, but what if it goes south? And then you're losing money, the implications of that. I recently had a fella on the show. We weren't talking about real estate, but the first time I met him, he was telling me what it was like when he woke up one morning and realized that he had lost over $1 million overnight on an investment. And he said for most people, that might have been a killer. He just decided that he's going to find a way to make that million back and another $1 million. And he's done that many times. But being comfortable with what could happen, that's critical to this. And it's no different in real estate. You have to understand it. That's why I don't fix toilets and I'm not comfortable having tenants, but you are. Ronnie, I think in any investment, once you understand your own risk tolerance, then you start to look at the different kind of projects. You did touch on it. There's some that are hands-on, like what you've done. Some are hands-off, like what I do, the passive. But the bottom line is real estate is not just easy. It's not just buy a home and the price is going to go up over time and then I'm going to resell it. There's a lot of steps in between to make that work. Maybe talk a bit about what you've done in your own life with making profit in real estate.
So building an income portfolio has allowed me to refinance, pull out equity, use it again, other passive investments. Um, I'm young enough where I'm still active, but I'm smart enough that time goes by too quickly. I want to spend it with the kids. And it was really important to build that passive side, allow money to work for me. I started understanding debt and all that creative financing that we talked about before to really allow me that freedom. But it really shifts with the education, the knowledge, and as you acquire some tools and resources and help and support, you're able to make some decisions. And that risk tolerance we were talking about sort of shifts. It sort of has a bit of a scale. And in the beginning, the people I talked to, brand new to real estate, perhaps very nervous, skeptical, conservative and fearful with their money. But that changes with knowledge. And if you're able to leverage somebody else's time and experience and professional team you had mentioned earlier, the risk tolerance will change. The type of investments will therefore change. The goals hopefully continue to grow and to get bigger. I've hit goals that I set 5 years ago. And I would have set bigger goals back then had I really believed in myself.
Yes.
So I set these these expectations and maybe I'll get here, but it's constantly moving. It's a constant scale, right? So the more you know, the more you can grow. And then it's just about.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would call it a developmental process. So when I work with clients, just like you said, you want to not only understand their risk tolerance, but have them go into a process where they can grow. And a lot of people, you touched on this and you're quite right. I'm working with a lot of people who have a home already, but are sitting with equity, and that equity is not making them any money. Until you sell a house or rent a house, you can't make money on the equity. And that's what a lot of people think. But as you and I know, there are ways to pull the equity out of your home. And that's going to cost you some money, usually in a second mortgage or a line of credit. But if you're putting those dollars into certain types of investments, there can be tax advantages for the person who's putting his or her money to work. There's ways to put them into these fixed rate investments. So maybe you're borrowing at one level of interest, which may be tax deductible depending on where you put this money in Canada. And then on the other hand, you have this kind of expected return. And then you can structure it whether you're so that maybe you're paying tax on the growth, maybe you're not paying tax on the growth. It's all part of this great country. But I always maintain it's good to sleep at nights. So whether you're going out to buy a home and rent it out, or buy, fix, and flip, or do passive income, there are things to learn. That's where the mentor like yourself comes in, Ronnie. But risks are a big part of it, but the winnings can be astronomical in real estate. I think you'll agree, people have made a lot of money in real estate.
Yeah, and what I like about it is that it's controllable, right? In the sense that I'm making decisions, it's not relying on, specifically markets. It's got multiple ways to profit from properties, the brick and mortar, tangible assets, whether that be hands-on or hands-off type of investments. But I like to talk to people first about where their ideas are at, what they're looking for. And often after a couple conversations that I have with people and share a little bit more about what's on the menu, they either find some clarity in their plan and their ideas that they were having, or they find a little bit more confusion because now I've just introduced more options for them, right?
You got
So
it.
that's where this change and growth and transformation really comes from as well. So, you don't know what you don't know is the expression, right?
Yep.
So now if you've got the opportunity, open up the menu. I always say it like this: if it's a buffet, don't grab a plate and then start filling stuff up, walking around. You'll never even make it all the way around before your plate's full.
Yeah.
Walk around without the plate and then
Take a
come back
look.
for a second round. Take a look first. And
Exactly.
that's what's really important with making these decisions, so that you know what's out there, because I've also seen people jump on opportunities too quickly and make very big mistakes,
Yeah.
like purchase properties and paid too much, or inherited tenants, I like to call it. Maybe they're squatters and they're not paying, and they didn't do their due diligence to see that the income was actually being deposited.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's interesting. I was speaking with a friend of mine the other day. She's an entrepreneur and very knowledgeable in real estate. She has done a ton of rent, tenants, landlords. She's right in the thick of the challenges that landlords are having now and renters are having right now. But the interesting thing was, I mentioned to her, what's the biggest thing that you would teach a landlord right now? And her opinion, doesn't have to be yours or mine, is to only act as a landlord investor in rent to own. She just loves the idea that, and for her, her comfort is that she never loses control of the subject property, even though someone's living in her property and they've agreed to purchase it. That's a different type of real estate investment. So there are many, many ways to do this. And your words are very, very important. You have to understand where you're going, what you want to do. I really believe in the mentoring system, as I said, but also having a good lawyer who understands real estate. There's many types of lawyers. I've found it's very important to have a real estate lawyer on my team, and he's been very helpful.
Are you suggesting that they're not all created equally?
Well, they're all created equally, but they all know different stuff. So there's many ways to use lawyers. And,
I say the same about real estate agents and mortgage brokers and lawyers and contractors. No, they're not all in the sense equal. There are those that have specific skill sets specialized in areas. And then there's those that are a little bit more diverse. There's those who are investors themselves. And that makes a difference as well, right?
Absolutely. That's how I got started as a mortgage professional. My bride and I years ago wanted to invest in real estate. I didn't know anything about it, so I thought I would take the mortgage course just to learn. I think every single high school kid in the last years of school should have to take the mortgage course. It's absolutely marvelous. And I never realized that that would grow from being an agent to a broker and having clients. You never know where your dreams can
I
take.
didn't either. I took the course simply because, and I shared earlier, when I learned how to borrow other people's money, I learned how to leverage other people's money. So I recognized that by educating, there was an opportunity here to help other people get the resources that they need and be compensated in return, and everybody's winning. Right? That's how I looked at it, and it was more for me to offer more opportunity or inventory on the menu.
You got it. You got it. And helping people, using other people's monies, but where we all benefit, is a terrific way to build businesses. And there's no question about it. Ronnie, I know that you do a process online. I missed your last Zoom presentation. I'm wondering if you'd talk about some of the highlights of what your presentations can offer to people. Would that be an area that you'd want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, we use online resources these days. Technology, times have shifted. The pandemic really had forced the live, in-person, hands-on, boots on the ground. We were in event spaces back then, and we had to shift to the resources we have today, like Zoom. And it really opened up the opportunity to reach more people. I never imagined this. It was like, this is what we're going to have to do. But then I discovered all the advantages and benefits of helping more people from different areas. And we really do promote investing in markets that may or may not be where you currently live. Like I have investors from, where I am here in Ontario that are investing on the East and the West Coast. And I have people in the West who got, and vice versa, right? So we're able to use the tools, resources, help educate. We offer all kinds of different type of resources, but ultimately it's about building the plan best suited for our client, really discovering. The process that I like to go through is learning about my client. Everybody has the KYC, know your clients, and understanding what your goals are, understanding what those risk tolerances are. And the more I can understand about my clients, the better I'm able to serve and provide the opportunities and demonstrate and pretty much walk them through that process, right to the transaction, right to, and the most rewarding thing is getting that investor who is for the first time, share their success story. That motivates me to keep going and helping the next person who's absolutely brand new. I mean, the success stories that I hear on such a regular basis of people coming back and saying, look, we just got the check, or we moved our RSPs, we're getting better returns, we're in this commercial investment now. So we've been able to help serve, provide, and share the menu with more investors across the country.
Yeah, and that's why I love dealing with you, because you really do have a great course of study that people can tap into. Linda and I, when we got started all those years ago, just learning how to think, and we really covered that in the first part of this presentation, Ronnie, part one, is even not what to think, but even how to think, how to recognize what you're looking at. And Linda and I made a big step years ago, way back in 1995, to go to an event and hear motivational and educational speakers. And oddly enough, one of them, Paul Zane Pilzer, is really the basis for this podcast 25 years later, more than that, where Paul talked about that the human mind cannot be defeated. And it opened my eyes so much, it disturbed me. And then Linda and I went to another event, and ladies and gentlemen, what I'm promoting is education with people like Ronnie, but don't be afraid to spend some money and explore winning in real estate, because Linda and I were at an event. Who came out was this young guy who had just written a book. I never heard of him before, but he turned out to be Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And Linda and I, for the next 4 events that we went to, had the privilege over a year of learning directly from Robert Kiyosaki. We had never heard of the cash flow quadrant. We had never even heard of the idea of being an entrepreneur as opposed to being a person with a job. Neither of those are wrong. Neither of those are right. These are about comfort levels with different skills, different risks. And I know that that's a lot about which you do very, very well, is helping people come to terms with even what they're thinking. And sometimes we have to grow in our thinking. And I'll tell you, I've had some growth experiences in real estate, but it's good to have mentors who can guide us and help us. And so I like what you do with people, Ronnie. You take them sort of from point A to point C and help them reach their goals, I would imagine.
That's my goal. That's my objective,
Yeah.
right? Yep, absolutely.
I love it. So, Ronnie, let me ask you how, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. If you would like to hear more about what Ronnie does, you can always write to us, as always, at yourgraymatterspod@gmail.com. Just put in the subject area, Ronnie Fisher, please connect me. We're happy to do that. Or Ronnie, do you have a website that you want people to take a look at?
Yeah, it's very easy. RonnieFisherConsulting.com.
Wow, that's a tough email address. But I know that
RonnieFisherConsulting.com. There it is.
it's great. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a way for you to hit your dreams, to hit your goals. I've never, ever seen anything on this earth that was created that wasn't someone's dream first. And so this whole idea of having dreams and reaching them, to me, it was very foreign in the beginning, but the truth is it's the way to go. Serious and successful people have dreams and figure out how to get there. You can do that in real estate with people like Ronnie. Ronnie, I want to thank you for coming on today. And ladies and gentlemen, like I said, reach out. You have nothing to fear by starting. You have nothing to fear by just learning. It's a great, great ride. And Ronnie, I thank you for everything that you do.
Very welcome. And thank you for having me again, Neil. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I'll catch up with you, Ronnie. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode of Your Gray Matters. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the Your Gray Matters podcast. The Your Gray Matters podcast was created by Neil Silvert and Jason Silvert, written and hosted by Neil Silvert, edited by me, Jason Silvert, and produced by Neil Silvert and Jason Silvert. Please follow us on any major podcast platform, watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and email us at yourgraymatterspod@gmail.com with any questions or feedback. Thanks for listening.
Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Your Gray Matters podcast. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Your Gray Matters podcast name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.